Hello, and welcome to the next episode of Two Girls Talk Transits. Today we're reviewing the astrology from November 24th through November 30th, and we're your host. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kaleigh.
Welcome back. So, we get the signature for this week is Mercury retrograde. Mercury will be stationing retrograde on November 25th at 22 degrees Sagittarius. So, if you have any planets around 22 degrees, especially the mutable signs of Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, and Sag, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to feel it a little bit more. And as we talked about already in this podcast, Mercury is in detriment in Sagittarius. So, this retrograde will be a lot of abundant miscommunication and misunderstanding. And I think with like Jupiter and Gemini too, there's just people who really, really feel like their viewpoints are right and correct
It's possible.
and don't want to back down on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to talk about a little bit? I think some people might be curious, like why, so Mercury's in retrograde, but why would the mutable signs like be feeling it the most? Is it because of that like angularity concept?
Yeah, so the aspects, the way that planets communicate to each other, there are several different aspects, but the ones that are stronger are the opposition, so 180 degrees in the squares, at 90
Mhm.
degrees in the conjunctions at 0 degrees. And so each sign that is the same modality, being like the mutable signs, cardinal signs, or fixed signs, are all in what we would say hard aspects, so opposition or squares with each other.
Mhm.
So, and those are the aspects that you feel the most. Like we talk about on this podcast, trines and sextiles as well, but we do spend more time reiterating and talking about conjunction squares and oppositions because those are what you really feel. And they're points of tension as well. Like oppositions are points of separation and squares are points of conflict. And
Mhm.
so that's generally what you notice the most in your life. Like you don't really pay attention or appreciate when things are going well, but you definitely complain and pay attention when things are going badly.
Yeah, it's just like or like a bit of like a sharper feel, It's
Yeah,
like we don't really notice like when the wind blows, that's not really bothering us. But if we like, get cut by something, it's like, ouch.
right.
Yeah.
So there is like if you do have a planet, in those mutable placements, those mutable and especially around the 22-degree mark or like 25 to like 19 degrees, especially like
Mm-hmm.
you may get like a personal signature with this retrograde, like maybe something happened directly to you that now getting reviewed, you were told false information, or maybe you had an idea that you weren't too sure about and now you have to review it, like it just
Mm-hmm.
becomes a little more personal versus if you don't have anything in those mutable signs, this could be more where you sit back and watch the world kind of fuck up.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I'm very interested to see what happens. I'm trying to see. We've talked quite a bit about this because, planets go in retrograde quite often. Mercury's happening every 3 months. It goes in retrograde.
Yeah, it's about every 3 months. There's about 3 to 4 every year.
Yeah. So, as per usual with any retrograde cycle, it's going to be like a review. We will be in that period of Mercury retrograde until December 16th,
Yeah.
when Mercury's going to station direct. So, we definitely have some time for review to be spent here. Be careful with like moving parts, travel, especially with Mercury being in Sagittarius right now. Like travel could be a big thing. I wouldn't necessarily like be booking travel during this time.
No.
Yeah, because that's definitely there's gonna be something that comes up where you just probably have to do it again or like deal with some kind of complications that comes in during that. Um, yeah. Anything else you want to add to that, Maddie?
No, I just think you just need to bake in time for recognizing that you don't have all the answers. The Sagittarius placement of Mercury can be really confident and sure of self, especially when it comes to like philosophies or beliefs of how the world works, and unable to like discern different viewpoints or details sometimes as clearly. So, if you're just feeling really gung-ho about something, you just need to give yourself a little bit more like trust that like, okay, I have to review this or I have to look at other things and not be so stern on a particular viewpoint. Like, because the sun's also in Sagittarius, Venus is in Cap, but like we have a lot of more mutable energy right now. And with Saturn also being a marker with this Mercury retrograde, it's like if you are too confident in something, you can expect to lose it. You can expect that to be taken from you, or you can expect some sort of a limitation to it. Because Saturn is squaring this Mercury retrograde.
That's very interesting. Yeah. So overall, not too much confidence in things since we're lacking like the details that we need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you do have too much confidence, it can be taken. Yeah. I mean, making that aspect to Saturn, it is going to be like um putting the boundaries or like restrictions on that in some way.
Yeah, I noticed just myself with the past aspects with Saturn lately. Like we had like a sun trining Saturn, but Mercury was squaring Saturn too. And I felt like I was having to say no a lot to people or like potentially put boundaries onto things that I generally wouldn't have. Like Jupiter
Mhm.
ruling Sag is not really a sign that likes boundaries or
Mhm.
confinement. And so it's definitely more of like having to be more serious about certain things that you're usually not serious about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Feel like that too, that speaks to Sag energy. It is I could see it being very boundarylessness because it wants to like that freedom to explore and to like expand. Yeah, so in that way it's lacking those boundaries and Saturn is probably coming in here to say like you better get some boundaries or
Right. Like you
else.
need to
Yeah.
decide if you can, you need to decide what your commitments are. You need to decide what you are going to do, or you're going to pay some consequences to it.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah. Very interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, collectively, like it will be interesting to just kind of see what does get reviewed. This being like the 2 month period before a new president, all of that. Like I'm expecting a lot of things to kind of come out of the light. Like we just have so many planets involved with this retrograde. Like Jupiter's also opposite Mercury. Like
Right. I was looking at that too. Yeah.
yeah, and that's going to expand the misinformation, the misunderstandings, and the lack of clarity, and also expand the idea that you know it all.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel like I can even see that happening like right now. Like, Jupiter and Gemini, there's been like so much expansion of just information. Everybody can kind of say anything at any point. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's been like that's been a bit of a struggle. And we'll see that coming more into play when we have this, Mercury opposition with Jupiter here. But yeah. It's very interesting. I can also see like even right now people are really like even though the president has been decided in one way or another, there people are still like, is it gonna change? I don't know. Like there's
Yeah, people
still
aren't confident. They have like this
Mhm.
other belief that they're holding. They're like, oh, but it's not like this, like, and yeah, a lot of that's gonna be challenged or reviewed. Like it is I don't know, it's just a time where you kind of need to be a little bit less forthcoming and kind of sit back and watch, but it's gonna be hard, I think. Fire energy wants to be heard, it wants to be seen.
And Sagittarius wants to preach. I mean,
Yes.
yeah. So you may even, feel called to like get up on your podium, and speak your truth. But yeah, like Maddie said in the beginning, like just err with caution,
Right.
don't be like so righteous that you don't include any margin for error in what you say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a thing that's gonna come back. So
Yeah.
fun little marker for this week. But we do also the next day around the 26th, we'll have the sun trining Mars. So the sun's in Sag, like I said, Mars is in Leo. So again, a lot of fire energy. And this can be a really motivating aspect and one that really sparks a lot of passion. And I don't know, I've been loving Mars and Leo. As a Leo rising, I've been loving it. Like I
Oh
feel
my
like my
goodness.
vitality is back, like my energy is back, like I am much more vibrant, energetic, and momentum forward. And so this is kind of that same kind of energy aspect wherever the fire trine is in your chart, you know?
Interesting. Yeah, I could see that on you too, especially, Mars moving from your 12th house into your first. Like that's such a big difference. So
It's so big.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I think with the trine, the sun trining Mars right here could be like really good, like purposeful action, awareness and clarity on the direction you want to take. Um, yeah, I think it could be like really, they're both obviously they're making a trine, so they're both in fire signs. So it could just be, yeah, that giving you that like momentum that you need to move forward. Yeah.
I think that one thing's important to keep in mind though too is that fire energy is very quick. It's fast, you know,
Mhm.
it's very purposeful in that it's very intentional, but it's
Yeah.
not long lasting. And we actually kind of need whatever project or whatever actions you're taking this week to be a little more long lasting than you're probably used to due to Mars is stationing retrograde in early December. And
Yeah.
so, you know, you are going to have to come back and review this. So it's more about like Leo also is a fixed sign, so more about like the longer term passions that what you're creating isn't just a one and done this week, but it's something that's going to come back around in the spring of 2025. And like, you know, it's part of this longer term story. So it's kind of trying to use your energy efficiently, I guess. Like instead of, oh, I feel so passionate today, I'm just going to go jump out of a plane or do something like,
Hmm.
no, what do I actually want a long-term goal to be reached by like
Mm.
spring 2025?
Yeah, that's a really good point. It could be like, getting really excited to like begin that project. But yeah, like you said, the work isn't finished. It's like, we're gonna have to review that in some way, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. That could even speak to the longevity. How do you say that? Longevity? Longevity?
Yeah.
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 Of the project. The fact that
Right.
we will have to review it is actually a good thing.
Yeah. And so it's just kind of keeping that in mind, but definitely a more fun week in terms of like doing the things that give you the energy, like give you the excitement back in your life and that sort of passion and growth that makes you feel a little more alive.
Yeah, I think in a way we'll all be like, maybe not all of us, but most of us will be appreciative of this little like fire energy,
Mhm.
especially as things are getting colder, we're like
Right.
we tend to like do more work on our projects, I think, because we're not out as much. We're kind of like in, working on things. So it could be, yeah, really good to like ignite some projects that you're going to take over the next couple months while you're kind of more indoors. If you live on like the part of the world that we live on, what is it called? The
Northern hemisphere?
northern hemisphere. Yeah. I was thinking, where are we?
I was thinking tropicals for a bit. I'm like, wait, like no, it's like tropical astrology. Like, wait, but yeah, close enough.
But I was thinking like, is it East Coast? But then it's more like northern and like I don't know. So I was getting confused.
Yeah, if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's like summer there, but
Yeah.
y-
So if you're in the
well,
colder regions, yeah.
we do get a vibe shift for like a change November 27th. Venus is in Capricorn, so we've been having, you know, a little more stability structure with our work projects and our material world. But she does square Chiron in Aries, and I included that because we don't have a lot of aspects this week, and two, during that period of time that Venus is squaring Chiron, the moon will also be in Libra, ruled by Venus, and then the moon will progress to Scorpio right around the time of the square and also square Pluto. And this is like the
Mm.
day before Thanksgiving in the United States. Yeah, it is. It's that Wednesday right before. So I could see like this being kind of an expression of tensions, especially, tend to be a time where you return to family or go to family and having to kind of reconcile differences or, political tensions there.
I was gonna say
Maybe,
it might be like a even family gatherings in themselves can be kind of heated, but with like the political stuff going on just recently, I could see it being like even more than normal. Yeah.
yeah, like realizing, with the moon and Scorpio squaring Pluto, like realizing like the tensions that are the secrets in your family or like who actually believes what. And then the Venus Chiron can be a little damper to like who can you feel like you're protected or trusted by in these relationships. Like just think everything getting a little challenged, I think.
Yeah. Or like, yeah, being cautious of those relationships, like not sure if like, oh, is this person like who I thought they were? We're definitely getting like some uncovering of the truth,
Mm.
with Pluto being in the mix here. Um, but yeah, I mean, what's happening the day after Thanksgiving or the day of
It's
Thanksgiving?
literally nothing. Like there was no notable potent aspects that I would include. It's just the moon and Scorpio. But then the day after Thanksgiving on the 29th, the moon will be opposite Uranus, in
Mhm.
Scorpio, opposite Uranus and Taurus. So, but yeah, the moon and Scorpio for Thanksgiving is not usually a time where you want to be gathering.
Right. I was thinking that too. Yeah. Um,
It's more of a time you want to be alone and or with people that you deeply trust. And Scorpio is really protective and wants the deeper truths and trust. And if you're not feeling that, you can be really shut off or closed off emotionally. So yeah, it's a spicy Thanksgiving, honestly.
yeah. Well, we get to like, especially in the US, I feel, I mean, this isn't for every culture and everybody in the US, but I feel like we don't get to spend that much time with family and relatives, so even if it is like astrologically intense, we are experiencing some more spicy energies, like you said. Like, you know, since we don't see these people that often, we can put some of the drama to the side, as much as possible. And try to enjoy those moments as much as you can. If Yeah, if you can.
And I think too, like perhaps a more positive manifestation of the Scorpio moon and even the Venus squaring Chiron is, also being in a space where you're able to kind of release or purge those deeper emotions and fears that you have about the
Yeah.
world.
Maybe the
Y-
like family is giving you that safe outlet to be like, I don't know, like if I can talk to everybody about this, but maybe I can talk to you guys and just like be authentic and like really speak about how I feel. So, family tends to get like the most authentic versions of us. So, yeah, maybe
Right.
Maddie, like you said, we just have that like container for just speaking our truth and not worrying like really what the outcome of that is.
Yeah, and like maybe allowing the sort of things that you have to keep protected or safe at work or in your daily life to
Yeah.
function is like purging that, like releasing
Mhm.
that. And it is a womb. Chiron's in the mix, but like that's just part of the process of healing as well. So it can be, more positive time of like coming together and gathering the resources that matter the most to you and feeling supported by those deeper emotional connections if you have that within your family.
Right, right. Yeah. Was thinking I wish Venus wasn't squaring Chiron because if it was like trining or making like a nicer aspect, we might, feel some more of like the healing side of that. I do think that there's still a potential for that. It just might like come with a little bit of conflict beforehand.
Yeah, and where it can be too, how like Venus is in Capricorn, where you just feel like, I mean, you can't quite address the womb because the womb is the system and it's so out of your control that you
Mhm.
can't, like, there's nothing either of you, nothing you and your family can do about it. So it's just like letting that be the square. Like, it just has to be this conflict that's just there.
Yeah, that's very true also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Realizing that the issue might not be in the individual, but in the system itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And then maybe part of that work, and then this week is realizing, like, I do think, side note, but like, I do think with everything, how a lot of people handle a lot of things is that they take it so deeply and so personally in the moment. And like, reality is nothing has changed yet. And there's a lot of talk, Mercury is
Mhm.
Sag and like Jupiter and Gemini. There's a lot of talk. There's a lot of information. There's like, blah, 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 reported this for the cabinet. Like, they're going to do this the first, but nothing has actually happened
Oh,
yet.
that's so true. It's such good placements right now for like political talk. Like,
Right.
and with, Mercury being retrograde, you guys, like, you will be talking to people, like reviewing these things that have happened and like reviewing events, and there just will be a lot of dialogue about,
Yeah.
about things. Yeah.
But then you need to discern, like with Venus and Capricorn, like what has materially changed in my world? What laws actually happened? Like
Nothing. Yeah.
what exactly? And so, like, I do think a bit of this, I mean, it's more of a side note, but I do think a bit of this astrology is like trying to ground down in what is actually real versus what is the
Perceived.
talk, the
Yeah.
hype. But Sag is so hype oriented, especially with Mercury there, just like a megaphone, like telling everybody this is happening, this is happening. But like, did it really happen?
Right. And we're not gonna really see, I don't think we're
No,
not gonna see relief from that for a while because since Mercury's going
because
backward.
it's the retrograde, right? It's going to be
Yeah.
just all this talk for the next 2 months of like just nonsense. And again,
Yeah.
recognizing that it's just talk.
Right. Mercury doesn't enter Capricorn until January 8th. So we
I
got
know.
some, yeah, we got some time.
So it is, I know. Isn't that right around like inauguration day?
I would have to Google it. I'm not good with dates.
I know,
I
I'm
should
not
have
just, hold
posted.
on. When is inauguration day? Monday. It's the January 20th. So yeah, like again, like that's the actual
Yeah, like concrete
inauguration.
plans coming
So I don't
through.
know. I mean, that's just my point, like with all this is maybe trying to take this moment to be like, what is really real and what can I just center in and focus in on and that be my reality instead of listening to all this hearsay and like background noise.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah. Cool. So,
So yeah. So we just like I said, we just wrap up the week with the moon opposite Uranus. My main note with for that is that it's going to reflect back to the full moon 2 weeks earlier,
mhm.
that we had on the 15th. Maybe the final manifestation of that full moon or the final kind of releasing, letting go. The moon is balsamic at this phase right now in Scorpio because we have a new moon the 1st of January, December.
Mhm.
And so there's this final release or like letting go or purge the end of this week for sure.
Interesting. So that opposition to Uranus, you think is like, I mean, the moon phase in general is speaking to like that purge. But the opposition to Uranus, you feel like it's just like the reflection from the previous full moon.
Yeah, I think it's both. Like, I think it potents the purge a bit because it makes the purge feel very disrupting or more shocking. Like, it gives it the Uranian nature of like sudden change or like, oh, this is really being cut away. This is a big initiation in my life. And then, two, with the full moon on the 15th of November being so close to Uranus, there is some sort of relationship Uranus is having with the moon, this lunation cycle until the next new moon. So it would just, that's kind of would speak to the unfolding of that story, whatever kind of got highlighted in that full moon. Each little aspect the moon makes with Uranus will continue to build that story.
Yeah, I feel like I mean that's really making so much sense though too, because I feel like none of us really know how to feel. Like one moment we feel this way and the next we feel that way. And I think that's speaking to those Uranus aspects that we are continuing to make, those our emotional world is being kind of like fractured in some way. And, we just start, Uranus is uncertain, we just don't really know where
Right.
we stand emotionally. Yeah. And it's subject to
So
change. Like we could feel like
yeah,
really like, oh, I'm this way. And then new information comes out, whether false or not. Oh, I feel this other way now.
right. So it's a little bit of this like wrap up this week. But yeah, we are in the next cycle going into December. And this is kind of what we're looking at is a lot of Sag energy, a lot of review of that energy, and we'll see what happens, basically.
Right. Don't spend all your Christmas money. Or I guess you can. It's Black Friday, right?
Doesn't matter. It'll be yeah, for real. It'll be an
Yeah.
interesting Black Friday. I
Mm-mm.
got the moon opposite Uranus.
Oh, Lord. Be
I
careful.
know.
You might spend
Yeah.
all your money.
Might get in
Uranus,
some fights.
the shocking news is your bank account is at zero. No, I'm just kidding. Oh,
Yeah, really.
mm-mm. Yeah.
But yeah, so that's all we have for this week. So if you want more content from us, then we have daily updates posted on TikTok. We have other updates posted on Instagram and YouTube, and then you can follow us all on those at Two Girls Talk Transits.
Yes, sounds good.
And then you can follow Kaleigh on Heal Dot on Earth on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram and me on Instagram at Maddie.delray and my website is maddiedelray.com.
Thanks for
Right?
listening. See you
See
next
y'all
week.
later. Bye.
Bye.